His co-workers were gone. What could it mean? Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo. When Stanley came to a set of 2 open doors, he entered the door on his left.
Ein guter Stanley, oder?
Ja.
Yet there was not a single person here either. Feeling a wave of disbelief, Stanley decided to go up to his boss's office, hoping he might find an answer there. Coming to a staircase, Stanley walked upstairs to his boss's office.
Jetzt war das gerade geändert. Jetzt konnte man gerade nach unten. Das war wahrscheinlich vorhin das Abgeänderte.
Tatsächlich. Wollen wir runter gucken? Wir können später morgen einen direkten Durchgang machen. Kommen wir genau unten. Dieses geheime Cave wahrscheinlich hier. Interessant.
But Stanley just couldn't do it. He considered the possibility of facing his boss. Admitting he had left his post during work hours, he might be fired for that. And in such a competitive economy, why had he taken that risk? All because he believed everyone had vanished? His boss would think he was crazy. And then something occurred to Stanley. Maybe, he thought to himself, maybe I am crazy. All of my co-workers blinking mysteriously out of existence in a single moment for no reason at all? None of it made any logical sense. And as Stanley pondered this, he began to make other strange observations. For example, why couldn't he see his feet when he looked down? Why did doors close automatically wherever he went? And for that matter, these rooms were starting to look pretty familiar. Were they simply repeating? No, Stanley said to himself, this is all too strange. This can't be real. And at last, he came to the conclusion that had been on the tip of his tongue. He just hadn't found the words for it. I'm dreaming, he yelled. This is all a dream. Oh, what a relief Stanley felt to have finally found an answer, an explanation. His co-workers weren't actually gone. He wasn't going to lose his job. He wasn't crazy after all. And he thought to himself, I suppose I'll wake up soon. I'll have to go back to my boring real-life job pushing buttons. I may as well enjoy this while I'm still lucid. So, he imagined himself flying and began to gently float above the ground. Then he imagined himself soaring through space on a magical starfield, and it too appeared. It was so much fun, and Stanley marveled that he had still not woken up. How was he remaining so lucid? And then perhaps the strangest question of them all entered Stanley's head. One he was amazed he hadn't asked himself sooner. Why is there a voice in my head dictating everything that I'm doing and thinking? Now the voice was describing itself being considered by Stanley, who found it particularly strange. I'm dreaming about a voice describing me, thinking about how it's describing my thoughts, he thought. And while he thought it all very odd and wondered if this voice spoke to all people in their dreams, the truth was that, of course, this was not a dream. How could it be? Was Stanley simply deceiving himself, believing that if he's asleep, he doesn't have to take responsibility for himself? Stanley is as awake right now as he's ever been in his life. Now, hearing the voice speak these words was quite a shock to Stanley. After all, he knew for certain, beyond a doubt, that this was in fact a dream. Did the voice not see him float and make the magical stars just a moment ago? How else would the voice explain all that? This voice was a part of himself too. Surely, if he could just... He would prove it. He would prove that he was in control, that this was a dream.
Okay.
So he closed his eyes gently, and he invited himself to wake up. He felt the cool weight of the blanket on his skin,
würde ich auch gerne spüren.
the press of the mattress on his back,
Ein bisschen, ja.
the fresh air of a world outside this one. Let me wake up, he thought to himself. I'm through with this dream. I wish it to be over. Let me go back to my job. Let me continue pushing the buttons, Please, it's all I want. I want my apartment, and my wife, and my job. All I want is my life exactly the way it's always been. My life is normal. I am normal. Everything will be fine. I am okay.
Nein.
Stanley began screaming. Please, someone, wake me up. My name is Stanley. I have a boss. I have an office. I am real. Please, just someone tell me I am real. I must be real. I must be. Can anyone hear my voice? Who am I? Who am I? And everything went black.
What the fuck? Frag mich, was die Entwickler genommen haben.
This is the story of a woman named Mariella.
Was? Sind jetzt Mariella?
Mariella woke up on a day like any other. She
Möchtest du
arose,
steuern?
got dressed, gathered her belongings, and walked to her place of work. But on this particular day, her walk was interrupted by the body of a man who had stumbled through town talking and screaming to himself, and then collapsed dead on the sidewalk. And although she would soon turn to go call for an ambulance, for just a few brief moments she considered the strange man. He was obviously crazy. This much she knew. Everyone knows what crazy people look like. And in that moment, she thought to herself how lucky she was to be normal. I am sane. I am in control of my mind. I know what is real.
Es wird doch immer ein neues Opfer, oder?
It was comforting to think this, and in a certain way, seeing this man made her feel better. But then she remembered the meeting she had scheduled for that day. The very important people whose impressions of her would affect her career, and by extension, the rest of her life. She had no time for this, so it was only a moment that she stood there, staring down at the body. And then she turned and ran.
Er sucht sich schon mal scheinbar ein neues Opfer. So, wir sind schon wieder im Loading-Bereich.
Ist das nur für ein Spiel?
Das sind die verschiedenen
All his
Enden.
co-workers were gone. What could it mean?
Also es war jetzt so, dass
Stanley decided
sein...
to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo.
Also wir müssen aufpassen, ob hier irgendwelche anderen Türen offen stehen.
Na, jetzt noch nicht. Erstmal durch die linke und dann hoch.
Irgendwann steht der rechte da und wir rennen doch in der falsche.
Yet there was not a single person here either. Feeling a wave of disbelief, Stanley decided to go up to his boss's office.
Unten waren wir jetzt.
Hoping he might find coming to a staircase, Stanley walked upstairs to his boss's office.
Da steht was dran.
Wartezimmer.
Das stand auch vorher nicht dran, oder?
Nee.
Und das Büro sieht auch noch so aus.
Ja.
Stepping into his manager's office, Stanley was once again stunned to discover not an indication of any human life. Shocked, unraveled, Stanley wondered in disbelief who orchestrated this, what dark secret was being held from him. What he could not have known was that the keypad behind the boss's desk guarded the terrible truth that his boss had been keeping from him. And so the boss had assigned it an extra secret PIN number, 2845. But of course, Stanley couldn't possibly have known this.
Und wir haben den Cursor jetzt.
Mhm.
In manchen Bereichen.
Stanley just sat around twiddling his thumbs. Trying to input anything on the device was useless, since he could never possibly know that the combination was 2845. Yet incredibly, by simply pushing random buttons on the keypad, Stanley happened to input the correct code by sheer luck. Amazing. He stepped into the newly opened passageway.
Jetzt sprengen wir die unterirdische Industrie. Also vorhin schon gespoilert hat. Okay. Interessantes, verrücktes Spiel.
Ja.
Loading.
Descending deeper into the building, Stanley realized he felt a bit peculiar. It was a stirring of emotion in his chest, as though he felt more free to think for himself, to question the nature of his job. Why did he feel this now, when for years it had never occurred to him? This question would not go unanswered for long.
Jetzt ist er durchgebrannt.
Stanley walked straight ahead through the large door that read Mind Control Facility.
Okay, nein, geht er.
Although this passageway had the word escape written on it, the truth was that at the end of this hall, Stanley
Das wollen wir
would meet
sehen.
his violent death.
Ne?
The door behind
Jumpscare?
him was not shut. Stanley still had every opportunity to turn around and get back on track.
Einfach weiterlaufen.
Nur eine
At
Überredungskunst.
this point, Stanley was making a conscious, concerted effort to walk forward and willingly confront his death.
Open Eye. Toll, man sieht ja noch nicht mal was.
Passiert nicht mal was. Fest eine Runde, neue Glasscreen und fertig. Nein?
As the machine whirred into motion and Stanley was inched closer and closer to his demise, he reflected that his life had been of no consequence whatsoever. Stanley can't see the bigger picture. He doesn't know the real story, trapped forever in his narrow vision of what this world is. Perhaps his death was of no great loss, like plucking the eyeballs from a blind man. So he resigned and willingly accepted this violent end to his brief and shallow life.
Ah, das ist ja davor und dahinter.
Jetzt komm hier rein.
Farewell, Stanley, cried the narrator. Stanley was led helplessly
What the fuck?
into the enormous metal jaws. In a single visceral instant, Stanley was obliterated as the machine crushed every bone in his body, killing him instantly.
Warum leben wir?
Ja, weil sie eingegriffen hat wahrscheinlich.
And yet it would be just a few minutes before Stanley would restart the game, back in his office, as alive as ever. What exactly did the narrator think he was going to accomplish?
Ach, gehen wir jetzt in unser Büro? Das sieht nicht aus wie unser Büro.
When every path you can walk has been created for you long in advance, death becomes meaningless, making life the same.
Er wird zufälligerweise in die richtige Richtung gegangen.
Do you see that Stanley was already dead from the moment he hit start?
Ah, wir sind von Anfang an tot. Ach, wie süß. Das ist unser Büro, das ist dieser Aufbau, den wir durchgegangen sind. Da. Nature paintings. The blueprint shows the office from the beginning of the game. Gesundheit, genau, da sind wir hier durchgelaufen, hier rüber. Hier durch, hier vorne war die Tür mit den Entscheidungen.
Ja.
Diese Office? Button-Sound. Was ist das? Flying Cabinet? Noch was auf dem PC hinten? Endlich Computer. Das Museum ist geil. Office Computers.
Machst du wieder alles aus?
Strom sparen. Die Credits? Nach rechts oder links? Das Zimmer haben wir noch nicht gesehen. Das sieht ja auch wieder aus wie das Chefzimmer. Post Office. Das haben wir gesehen.
Wir haben nur das in der Mitte gesehen, ja.
Die beiden kennen wir nicht.
Ey, was ist denn das jetzt hier?
Gehen wir da jetzt hoch oder gehen wir nochmal auf die andere Seite erst drüber? Ich weiß nicht, ob die zusammenführen.
Das weiß ich auch nicht.
Wir sehen sie in dem Museum und sehen das Spiel. Office. Maintenance Room. Point of Stanley Parable HD Remix is to lose. Greenlight. Kriegszone. Early in the development of the Dines and ending where Stanley would end up on a battlefield fighting aliens. The action game would become sentient and would wage war against the narratives. We realized shortly after starting to build it that it was a far too jokey and one of the notes of the tuned games. Plus some people in the president is making fun of people who like shooters, which was not under intention. Interessant. Die Klingel? Das wäre cool gewesen. Narrative E-Mails. Partner, I'm Anthony, Elias, business broker. Please partner with me in a very rewarding business adventure. Don't have friends. We're playing Stanley Parable, help me make friends. Don't. Okay. Die Lounge. Haben wir auch gesehen, aber mit anderen Stühlen. Office. Hier gleich das Telefon, ne?
Nö. Einfach nur ein Timer.
Okay. Cargo Lift. Das wäre der Cargo Lift, wenn wir bestimmt runtergesprungen sind, ne?
Den man hätte runterspringen können, ja.
Maintenance Layout. One Option. First Choice. Da musst du entscheiden. Da sind wir Lounge, Maintenance und dann drüben da. Das ist immer dieselbe. Ne, da oben ist eine Unterscheidung. Da ist noch ein Nachbarraum. So, Offline Entrance would be hidden, defend on how to enter it. Da ist ein Vent sogar. Zwischen Lounge und hier gibt es auch noch eine Verbindung. Alter, was haben die hier gemacht? Meeting Room.
Warum gehst du jetzt nicht in das Zimmer, was da war?
Hier wollen wir noch nicht. Doch, hier wollen wir. Hier wollen wir. Von da kann man, hier müssen wir. Okay. Wie lange meinst du?
Ja.
Escape-Menü. Sending Model. Sending Brand through the intention this room responds the fourth version of ending. Killer wollen wir nie. Also wie viel Ending gibt's denn hier? Das ist das Sending also.
Oh nein.
Ich weiß nicht, ob das Spiel abgespielt ist oder.
Ich denke, es ist abgeschmiert.
Okay, ist wirklich weg. $1,30. Also wir starten Stanley Parable nochmal neu. Wenn er mitmacht. Beginnen müssen. Ja, wir beginnen ganz vorne.
All of his co-workers were gone. What could it mean?
Also rennen wir jetzt ja einfach mal ein bisschen durch.
Genau.
Ey, wir kennen das ja jetzt hier alles schon.
Wir halten uns an die Storyline. Wobei wir ganz vorne anfangen, vielleicht gibt es ja noch diese Ending noch nicht.
Schmiert wie Schmelzkäse.
Yet there was not a single person here either. Feeling a wave of disbelief, Stanley decided to go up to his boss's office.
auch wieder
Coming
unten
to a
lang, ne?
staircase, Stanley walked upstairs to his boss's office.
Machen wir ganz offiziell.
Stepping into his
2,
manager's
8, 4,
office,
5.
Stanley was once again stunned to discover not an indication of any human life. Shocked, unraveled, Stanley was in such a rush to get through the story as quickly as possible, he didn't even have a single minute to just let the narrator talk. That kind of anxiety isn't healthy, so he relaxed for a few moments with some calming New Age music.
Die haben ja wirklich an alles gedacht, ey.
Dass man selbst sowas umgeht, Hauptsache.
Feeling soothed and rejuvenated, Stanley calmly walked forward into the opened passageway.
So, wollen wir diesmal wieder in den Tod gehen oder wollen wir das andere machen? Wir können doch erstmal
Wir sind
wirklich...
ja jetzt nicht durch das Museum da durch.
Nee, das kam erst, nachdem wir in den Tod gefallen sind.
Genau.
Dadurch kam er. Wir können jetzt erst nochmal probieren, gerade ganz gerade Story machen.
Stanley realized he felt a bit peculiar. It was a stirring of emotion in his chest, as though he felt more free to think for himself, to question the nature of his job. Why did he feel this now, when for years it had never occurred to him? This question would not go unanswered for long. Stanley walked straight ahead through the large door that read Mind Control Facility. The lights rose on an enormous room packed with television screens. What horrible secret did this place hold? Stanley thought to himself. Did he have the strength to find out?
Wahrscheinlich sehen wir da die ganzen Mitarbeiter jetzt, ne? Weil jetzt arbeitet ja gerade keiner.
Now the monitors jumped to life, their true nature revealed.
Okay.
Each bore the number of an employee in the building, Stanley's co-workers. The lives of so many individuals reduced to images on a screen, and Stanley, one
Die
of them,
Stromrechnung, ja.
eternally monitored in this place where freedom meant nothing.
Wo ist unser Zimmer? Ah ja, das ist leere Räuber.
This mind control facility, it was too horrible to believe. It couldn't be
Irgendwo
true.
da drüben.
Had Stanley really been under someone's control all this
427 da.
time? Was this the only reason he was happy with his boring job? That his
Vermutlich.
emotions had been manipulated to accept it blindly? No, he refused to believe it. He couldn't accept it. His own life in someone else's control? Never. It
Nope.
was unthinkable,
Yeah.
wasn't it? Was
Yeah.
it even possible? Had he truly spent his entire life utterly blind to the world? But here was the proof, the heart of the operation. Controls labeled with emotions, happy or sad or content. Walking, eating, working, all of it monitored and commanded from this very place. And as the cold reality of his past began to sink in, Stanley decided that this machinery would never again exert its terrible power over another human life. For he would dismantle the controls once and for all.
Das sind die Buttons, die wir drucken konnten. Da passiert halt nichts.
Ich denke mal eher, du musst in die Mitte.
Ja, oder da hoch. Also dahin soll man bestimmt gehen. Oder da runter.
Ja, weil da vorne steht ja Power, deswegen.
Ja.
Und wenn es heißt ausschalten, dann, ne?
Ja, prinzipiell richtig. Und was steht da oben? Gar nichts. Außer ein Knopf. Da ist ein Knopf. Oder hier sind überall Knöpfe.
Das sind diese Knöpfe, die du vorhin im Museum.
Ja, das sind alles diese Knöpfe. Du musst die Reihenfolge drücken. Drück die mal Reihenfolge.
Jetzt hast du 1, 2, 4.
Deswegen drücke ich nochmal runter. Wo sind die 3? Was ist der 5? Da vorne leuchtet was?
3.
So, nach unten nochmal mal die 5. Die 6 haben wir nicht noch gesehen, ne?
Mhm.
Ah, es sieht aber nichts.
Dann geht doch jetzt einfach zur Power.
Ich habe noch mal geguckt, ob ich noch was übersehen habe. Warte mal, sehen wir hier die, was war die? 427, ne?
Ja.
1 bis 142. Was sind die Ebenen?
Das sind alles noch Arbeitsplätze.
Da geht zu. Elevating input.
And when at last he found the source of the room's power, he knew it was his duty, his obligation, to put an end to this horrible place and to everything it stood for.
Du hast gesagt, du willst es doch jetzt machen.
Gut, dann machen wir Story. Dann machen wir Story. Wir können es ja dann nochmal durchgehen. Es ist ja kein langes Spiel.